Lower Berth shows us how true love can be a true freak show. Directed by Kevin Yeager, written by Fred Decker, and shot by Robert Draper. Based on a story from Tales from the Crypt number 33. It's all in the family today on a very special episode of our favorite horror anthology. A traveling carnival sets up camp outside a small town. Ernest Feely introduces the audience to his collection of freaks. He has all the typical sideshows. Well, typical for this line of work. But he has one attraction that stands above the rest. Myrna, the only female mummy in existence. Ernest has Dr. Kling, the owner of the mummy, tell the tale of how he discovered her. Myrna was a slave girl who the pharaoh wanted as his wife, but she refused, and in anger, the pharaoh had her buried alive in the ceremonial wrappings. 4,000 years later, Dr. Kling finds her. And now, before the crowd, he reveals his discovery and unwraps her decayed face for all to see. One day, Ernest sits in his office when unlicensed Dr. Jeb Sickles pays him a visit. The doctor thinks he has something of interest to the freak show proprietor. What he has is Enoch, the dead, two-headed son of a cave woman. Sickles has had the young man preserved in moonshine for 2 years. Ernest and the doc rush by horse and wagon to the preserved body. Ernest offers Jeb a salary to join his freak show, sharing his discovery with the world. Jeb accepts. In the show, the roles are reversed. It is Enoch, the two-faced man, alive and well, who is the star of Ernest Feely's freak show. Enoch keeps escaping from his cage, and Feely warns Sickles that if he can't keep Enoch under control, then he'll have to find a new headliner. Dr. Zachary Kling sneaks in that night to have a word with Mr. Sickles. Kling believes he may be of help to Sickles' predicament. Kling has recently won the mummy, Myrna, in a card game, and Myrna can be Sickles' new attraction for Feely's show, in exchange for a split in the profits.
She's yours for a 60-40 split. Do we have a deal or not?
What's the catch?
I'm afraid I don't follow you.
It's a business of playing people for suckers. Don't play me for one. What do you need me for? Why don't you go straight to Feely?
Mr. Sickles, as I said, I'm a gambling man. I play to win, and winners tend to make enemies, if you take my meaning.
In all candor, I need to keep a low profile for a while. The less official my connection with the sideshow, the better.
What about the jewels?
Oh, completely worthless, Mr. Sickles, a mere prop.
Sickles and Kling drink to the arrangement, and Myrna is a hit for Feely's sideshow. The comic's Enoch is placed in a tank of formaldehyde. The sight of this horrendous freak of nature repulses the crowd. It doesn't take long for Ernest to move Enoch up to share top billing alongside Myrna. Now, 5 times a day, Doctors Kling and Sickles present Myrna and Enoch to the carnival. And to each other. Enoch can't believe his eyes every time Myrna is revealed. One day, a little girl finds Enoch in his cage backstage. She lets him see his beloved Myrna, and then gives him her doll before being taken away by her mother. The carnival moves from town to town. Ernest cuts Dr. Kling's pay so he can give Sickles an equal salary, before finally moving Myrna outside of the tent to draw in the crowd. Enoch and Sickles are the main event now. When the wrappings are removed from Myrna's face, she only sees the crowd and no Enoch. When the curtain uncovers Enoch's tank, he only sees the crowd and no Myrna. In the dead of night, Myrna comes to life, removing her wrappings. Meanwhile, Enoch climbs out of his tank. The abusive Sickles realizes Enoch longs for Myrna in a normal life. He finds this laughable, but the laughter stops when he spots a newspaper picturing Myrna, the stolen mummy. It's time he has a little talk with his associate. Dr. Kling takes this opportunity to explain an alleged curse.
Whoever attempts to take that necklace will be rendered.
Rendered what?
You know. Unable to procreate, if you take my meaning.
You mean whoever takes the family jewels loses theirs? Yes, thanks. I'll take my chances.
Mr. Sickles! You're not listening to me. I hired a man to take that necklace off. That night I found him. He was castrated.
Too bad your father wasn't, if you take my meaning.
Sickles tries to walk away, but Kling pulls him back, only to meet his accidental death. Sickles sets out to frame Enoch and steal the jeweled necklace off of Myrna. Seriously, who is the real Two-Face here? Enoch fights back against Sickles, and Myrna awakens. The next morning, Myrna and Enoch are missing. Kling and Sickles fight with each other, both accusing the other of stealing their exhibit. Ernest makes the two come to their senses. They spot a trail of unspooled wrappings and drops of formaldehyde. Say goodbye to your suspension of disbelief, because the three men follow the evidence all the way to a justice of the peace. The justice tells them he married a couple late in the night, and they smelled really bad. He can't describe them beyond that, for he is blind. The trail is lost, Myrna and Enoch are gone. Feely is gearing up his next crowd for some freaky exhibits. To everyone's shock and dismay, Enoch and Myrna are nowhere to be seen. But that doesn't mean they don't get a show. Sickles' bloodied body is on full display. A year later, the carnival returns to the very town where the star attractions disappeared. Ernest hears rumors of a mummy living with a two-headed corpse up in the mountains. Kling and Sickles reunite with Ernest to scavenge the mountain caves. To their surprise, they actually find Myrna and Enoch and drag them back to the sideshow. A year passes in the show as well, and Ernest Feely receives a visit from the sheriff. Feely is taken to a nearby cave where he finds Enoch and Myrna sleeping together in a bed made of hay. The sight disgusts Ernest, who runs out in fear. The story is over, except now we are left alone with a hideous infant crying for its mother, our baby Crypt Keeper. In addition to directing Lower Berth, Kevin Yeager designed the Crypt Keeper puppet and directed all the series' intros and outros featuring his creation. It's only fitting for the puppet's creator to also bring the character's origin story to the screen. The Crypt Keeper is brought to life through the efforts of 6 puppeteers. Occasionally, a little person wearing a suit and mask will double for the puppet when CK needs to walk around. A more famous fact is that Yeager reused the eyes from his Chucky puppet on Child's Play for the Crypt Keeper. Kevin's older brother, Jeff, played Enoch in the episode, and his younger brother, Chris, did the mechanically operated makeup. This is also the first episode shot by cinematographer Robert Draper, a mainstay for other horror anthologies, including Tales from the Dark Side, Monsters, and Creepshow. The episode is good, and a more serious turn from the comic. However, I do prefer the original. It feels more focused on Myrna and Enoch. I love that the comic also breaks away from the carnival setting to find the justice of the peace. Plus, the final image of the newborn Crypt Keeper being left alone after its parents are stolen away is just too unsettling. Lower Berth is a love story that will definitely make you freak out.
Naughty boy.